Daestingr. Oh, okay. All right, start over. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Taran Daestingr, the Ever Vigilant, which is the little tagline I've added on since I have been on Vigil since March of 2020. Come down to your Westward, there's going to be a great party. I'm going for the record. But today, what I am here to talk to you about is one of my absolute favorite events called Athenaeum. And it looks like it should be said Athenaeum, or that's the way some people say it. It's very, the pronunciation is complicated. But the important thing about this event is that it is awesome and all of you should go. So whether or not you display is clearly up to you, but like this event is worth going to even if you're not displaying. But I'm mostly going to be talking to you, trying to convince y'all to who have done, at least been in the SCA long enough to have made some stuff or researched some stuff to do a presentation at Athenaeum because it is so much fun. I displayed at the first two Athenaeums where they were in person. I did not do a display for the two virtuals, partially because I did not have enough spoons during the pandemic and partially because it was in that weird gray area between laurel and not laurel. Like I said, going for the record here for being on Vigil. 2 years and counting.
My apologies for the interruption. I have to watch my nieces and nephews for a while, so I'm going to have to leave the meeting.
Okay.
Yes,
they get a little. If you can.
I will try. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for anyone who is unfamiliar with Athenaeum, Athenaeum is an event that was started approximately 4 years ago. That is an idea stolen from another kingdom by another one of our transplant friends. And the whole purpose of the event is to really showcase non-laurel artisans, to give people a non-competitive space for showing what they do. And this event is perfect for that. So the whole thing is you sign up and you show up with the display, and the laurels get to fight over who gets to talk to each artisan, because every artisan is assigned a minimum of 2 laurels will come to your table and geek out with you for a minute. There's no scores, there's no judging, there's nothing like that. It is just a huge celebration of arts and sciences. It's like, what are you doing? What are you interested in? What are you exploring? What do you want to learn? It's a really, really great experience. It's really great for connecting with other people who share your interests, whether that's the laurels or other people doing displays, or even just people walking around looking at displays because they haven't decided yet. When I went, I was astounded at the massive amount of cool information that I never was able to find by myself. Like I put up, like, here's what I do on my table. And people would come to me and be like, oh, that's really cool. Have you seen this book? Have you been to this website? Have you looked at this artist? And so I came home with like a whole notebook full of new resources that I never stumbled upon on my own. But because I put out there what I do, people came to me with that information, which is really, really great. It's great for teaching other people things and for inspiring other people to try new stuff. And there's some other things in there that are also very valid that are worth mentioning, like it helps you build your reputation, word fame. It gets visibility. One of the problems that we have down here in the South is that a lot of the kingdom level activity happens further north. Our Ontier is kind of centered around the Seattle area, and sometimes the folks in the Seattle area kind of forget that not everyone is a 2-hour drive from Seattle. And if you aren't a 2-hour drive from Seattle, they may not know who you are. This is a great opportunity to put yourself out there and get visibility from those people who are very actively involved at the kingdom level, and just get to know them, because honestly and sadly, they're probably not going to come to us. Beyond that, if you are a crafter who takes commissions, this is a really good place to have people come to you and be like, oh my God, what can I pay you to have you make me one of whatever that is. I turned down many commission requests while I was there. But anyway, it is a really, really great event for all of those reasons. The process to get involved with it is pretty simple. You have to fill out a survey that basically is like, who are you and what is your primary art? And don't let that intimidate you, because there will be an opportunity to revise your category, to revise what you say you're displaying pretty late into the process. At least there was the years that I was doing this. The only reason they ask you a category is to make it easier for the laurels to pick which people they want to talk to. And right now, unfortunately, the artisan registration is technically closed. They hit capacity in the first 24 hours. But life happens. There are always people who have to drop out. So the wait list almost always ends up getting in. And even if the wait list doesn't get in, even if we flood the wait list and there's dozens more people than they have room for, that tells them how many more tables they need to be able to accommodate next year. So sign up. If you are even considering it, sign up, sign up, sign up. This is such a good event. One of the reasons that I love it so much is because for me, the first Athenaeum came when I had been in a bit of a creative slump. I felt like I hadn't done anything new or interesting or worthwhile in a really long time. I was just feeling like people just knew me for my big crazy hats and that was it. And I think anyone who crafts has been there, has been in that point where you're just like, I don't feel worthy. But it was a really cool event. It was a really cool idea and I wanted to support it. So I signed up and I decided to do the thing. And then I didn't have anybody to ask what it was like because it had never been done in the kingdom before. And so I did my social anxiety thing and panicked and had no idea what to do and started just trying to figure out what I was going to bring. And the process of putting together a body of work display has, for me, been one of the most encouraging things that I have done for myself as an artisan, because it really forces you to reflect on how much you actually have accomplished and built and learned and explored. It was really, really great for battling those brain weasels that tell me I'm not good enough. It also is really cool for allowing you to sort of like look at the big picture of what you do and sort of connect the dots in the sorts of things that you're looking at. You're like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have learned how to do this if I hadn't gone over here and learned that. And it kind of lets you figure out all those, pardon the D&D term here, but it helps you figure out all those synergy bonuses you didn't realize you'd built up by learning all these other cool things. So it's really, really valuable for this. And it's also, for me, I think, a really good thing to do, partially because of the sorts of things you can bring. So like if you are doing a display, my experience has been you're either competing, which means the emphasis is on new things and heavily documented things and completely accurate things, or you're doing just like an optional display that usually ends up off in a side room that is really hard to find and most people won't even go and look at it, and it often just doesn't even feel worth the effort. Arts and sciences often takes not necessarily a like back seat, but at least it's shunted off to the side a little bit of most events, where in this event it is the showcase, it is the primary thing that is going on. But it also allows you to bring the stuff you wouldn't necessarily bring. It's okay to bring stuff you have already entered and already displayed. Repeats are fine. It's okay to bring your work in progress. It's okay to bring things you're exploring and are still working on improving. It's okay to bring things that failed utterly. In fact, do that because it's a great conversation piece. It's a great way to bring in things that you can't, at least yet, fully document, or you haven't finished documenting. It's a great place to bring your newest obsession where you're like, I still suck at this, but I'm having so much fun learning about it. Really anything that shows the skills that you have or the evolution of your research or basically anything you do, bring it because all of it's relevant and all of it's valid. So there's my whole pitch as to like really why you should go, because it's awesome at every aspect. Does anyone have any questions before I move on to advice? Going once.
I have a question.
Yes,
Does this qualify for like baking and brewing as well?
I believe so. I know that there have been in the past some alcohol restrictions, depending on the site they're at, but there were people who brought food. I just, you would have to check with the site to see whether or not they did it at a grade school or a middle school the last time I attended. So they had a very strict no alcohol policy.
Makes sense.
But I believe yes, as long as the site doesn't say no.
And where is it located this time?
It is hosted by a branch up in the Seattle area.
I don't know if your people would do this if you have an alcohol restriction site, but we just had an alcohol restriction site for Caid's pentathlon. And basically what they did is they had a limo offsite because one of our groups has access to a limo, and everybody that was judging anything brewing went out and did it in the limo.
Nice. I mean, it's a worthwhile suggestion. If we ever do something like that down here, my housemate owns a party bus.
That would absolutely work.
It totally would. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any age restriction on this event?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So I have one other question.
Yes.
So some parts of the SCA in America are very anti-Roma. Is that something I need to be braced? Like, where does Antir sit in that?
Antir seems to be pretty open to just about anything. The only thing I have seen any sort of contention with has been, certain appropriated symbols that end up in period trim quite often.
I was in Caid. I know that reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, in general, people in Antir seem to be way less persnickety about the medieval Europe focus that some other kingdoms like to try and enforce to the exclusion of everyone else.
Yeah, I ran into some problems when I visited in Georgia, and a few small pockets in Caid. But again, I'm new to the area, so I get to ask these questions.
Yeah, as far as I know, that isn't my persona, so I don't personally have experience with it. But as far as I am aware, I don't think anyone would have a problem.
You said anti-Roma or Roman?
Roma.
Roma.
Ah.
Roma.
Roma is the politically correct term for gypsy.
You won't find a problem in our area with that.
Generally not West Coast. We have a I know in the West anyway, in my area, we have a large Balkan Roma community.
Yep. Okay.
And there hasn't been, they haven't experienced as much discrimination here on the West Coast as when they go visit family in the East, on the East Coast.
Okay, that's very exciting because my child and I are of Roma descent, and one of the ways I teach it to him is through the SCA, and I've been very scared to bring him to an event.
Oh, no.
No, for the most part, especially if you are doing it in a, in a well-researched and authentic way, people will embrace stuff, even if it's not anything they're familiar with. They'll be like, oh, you're doing something new and weird. Tell me all about it.
That's
Um,
fantastic. Awesome. Because like
I really don't think you're gonna find any problem within Ontario.
okay,
My persona is Roma
okay,
because I'm married into the family.
okay.
My wife
I
is
feel
Roma
you.
descent, so yeah.
Okay. That is super exciting to hear because we wore some of our traditional garb and we couldn't even make it to an event because there was such persecution on the bus.
Sorry.
That's not
Well,
good.
shame on them.
Yeah, that's just people being ugly, and
Yeah.
that's one thing about the Outlands here. In our general area, I've seen literally everything here. Even we have a event coming up, Grand Outlandish. I believe somebody mentioned that earlier. That I've even seen cosplay outfits show up at the event, which throws you off a little bit, but
There's some events that tend to draw a little bit more what they call the fringy crowd. We've got, I mean, Eggles, which was mentioned, it was definitely mentioned earlier, tends to have a lot of 17th century pirates show up on occasion. Whatever. Everyone's there to have a good time. We'll say make an attempt at
one thing I've enjoyed about this area, I've never seen, other than a few people with personal conflicts with each other, as far as the society life goes, never seen any contention or as you're saying, persecution over somebody's outfit. That's just flat ridiculous to me.
I'm with you.
I mean, we have Sir Smythe, who has a beautifully made, at which he's done all himself, Roman Legion armor that is literally shaped the way it's 98-99% accurate.
I'm going to try and drag us back on track now because I have some more things to cover. But yes,
sorry.
As you were.
I did still have a question.
Yes.
When you say you bring everything, even if we've been practicing some of our skills on out of period stuff?
Yes. Absolutely. Bring it and be like, I started with this because it's cheap and expendable and I still suck. I started with this because it's what I could get. I started with this because it's something that it's something that I had lying around and I didn't want to invest in the tools until I knew if I liked it. Go ahead and bring it. Definitely. So no one is going to judge you for doing non-period stuff, especially if you say, I know this isn't period and I'm working toward period. This is my starting point. Awesome. So yeah, I bring it. I don't want to say bring it all because you may end up with what I did where at first I'm like, I haven't done anything worthy. And then I'm like, oh shit, an 8-foot table. I should leave that at home. And I guess I only need 2 of those. And I ended up having to scale it down. We also, for the record, the first time I went up to Athenaeum, we had 6 people and 5 displays in a minivan for that 8-hour drive. It was real cozy. That said, the folks going up this year, there will only be 5 of us and no displays. So if anybody has a largish thing they need to bring that will not fit in their car, especially if you are somewhere along the I-5 corridor, we can probably swing by and help you out. because we will have extra space this time in the in the Glendoofin caravan up to Athenaeum. So don't let car size limitations restrict you. I will help if I can. I want people to go to this event. It's so good. Anyway, dragging myself back to the back to the outline, keeping myself on track here. So list of things that I highly recommend you do if you are planning on going to this event. Number one, most important number one, keep track of your physical needs. I am probably the only one I know who was not terribly, terribly dehydrated after the first Athenaeum because no one drank water. They had planned it to overlap, to stagger everybody's breaks, but no one stopped because something was still going. The only reason I drank water is because I brought my huge fighting jug of water and had it hidden under the table and also had line of sight to a drinking fountain. So anytime my table was empty, I would run to the drinking fountain and refill my mug. Drink fluids, use the restroom. I still didn't succeed at that at the second Athenaeum, even with the lunch break. Eat a food, very important. Like, keep track of your physical needs. It is so easy to get sidetracked and then suddenly you're just like, why brain no go? Oh, haven't eaten since 7 a.m. That's no good. Another thing that is super important that I found really helpful, having some sort of like portfolio of the stuff that you do that's easy to leaf through, especially if there's a bunch of stuff you have gifted away or, you know, outgrown, don't have a good way to display, things that have been destroyed, things that have been eaten if you're a food person, like pictures and stuff of other things you can't for whatever reason bring with you is a really good idea. It also makes for a really good impromptu, I'm doing a demo or whatever, just like throw in the portfolio and here's all the stuff you can do. It's all,
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but on your portfolio thing,
yes.
I do leather work, and me and a fellow Scadian do brewing. But on my
Nice.
leather work, instead of packing all the projects I've made with me, if you're doing a portfolio on that, should it be in a period style, like binder, or?
It doesn't have to be. It is entirely up to you. I could show you what my portfolio looks like. I'd have to run on the other side of the room to grab it, but mine is in a giant metal 3-ring binder, and it's printed out pieces of paper glued to tag board. It's not period. It doesn't matter. It's portable. It's durable. What we do as arts and sciences folks, while we make period things, or at least endeavor to, we don't necessarily, like, arts and sciences displays are not actually period in the way that we do them. So, like, there apparently are people who, especially in competitions, will look down at you for having non-period display and really, really despise the science fair trifold board of information. Personally, I think they're great because we are an educational society. The point is to share information. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing it right. So if anyone has problems with non-period methods of distributing information, they can fight me. Like, literally, I will go grab my sword. I will fight them.
Yeah, if we're willing to ignore the fact that we're in like a 4-H camp, you know, cafeteria, we can ignore that somebody's got a trifold display.
Exactly. Okay, so yes, portfolio. Thing number 2 that is a good idea. A resume of the stuff you've done, the classes you've taught, the awards you've received, the offices you've held. It's a good idea. People want to know who you are. Don't be dumb like me and glue it into your portfolio, because then when you do more stuff, you have to figure out how to take it out or glue over page protectors, guys. Smarter than me, learn from my mistakes. The other thing that is super, super helpful, and we're getting to the point where I actually do have visual aids here. So I made business cards. They're not really officially business cards, but I basically took my heraldry and turned it into a watermark and made myself little print it yourself business cards that had a link to my Google Drive where all of my handouts live and my name and a couple of the things that I do that people might know me for. And then I also took them and printed out a bunch of them that only had my name on them that I use as identification tags for all of the stuff on my display. So this was prompted by me being a little salty about my 10 minutes of fame. Was one of my outfits went completely viral on the internet without any identifying marks on it at all, not attached to my name. It made it all the way to a completely different social media platform in Australia. And nobody knew it was mine. So I was a little salty about that. So now anytime I do a display of any kind, every single thing in my display has a tag that says what it is, but that's right under my name with my heraldry. That's mine. I did it, which is partially selfish because yes, I want the credit for my work, but it's also generous in a way because it means that if somebody sees this picture on a different social media platform in Australia and they want to know who did the thing, they can look me up. They can find me and send me an email and say, hey, you made this hat that had some feathers and how, tell me, and I can help them. So I highly, highly, highly recommend tags with your name on them, heraldry optional. I wanted them to be fancy. It's also a really good idea. One of the things that I'm very happy that I did was putting all of my downloadable content in a folder online and putting the link to that folder on my business cards. So anytime I hand out a business card, they can follow that link and get to where all of my class handouts and all of my competition documentation lives. I did this because I have zero executive function. If I tell you I'm going to send you something, that is a lie. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to remember. It's nothing personal. I just won't remember. I don't want people, even if people remind me, I'm like, oh yeah, you're reminding me, but right now I'm outside and up to my elbows in dirt. I will get to it when I get inside, and I will not, I will forget. But if I have a class handout on that, here, take a business card, it's on them to look it up. Everything's already in that folder. Anything they want is in that folder. I don't have to remember to do it. Best idea I ever had. Because
I super love this idea. It is so cool.
It's such a good way to share information. And people, I have handed out my business cards with the link to my Google Drive for very diverse reasons. I have a whole bunch of cut and thrust armor patterns on there. And so someone was like, no one makes gauntlets in my size. I'd be like, oh, you're about an extra small long. Yeah, I've got a pattern for Wisby gauntlets, an extra small long, in my Google Drive. Here, have a business card. And then I get a message like a week later going, oh my God, you have instructions on how to draft a coat hardy pattern. I'm like, yes, I do. And they're like, I didn't even know I needed that, but now I do. It's a really, really great way to share your information. Put all of your downloadable content in a folder, keep that link on you, hand it out to everyone who needs it. It's really, really great idea. I hand out so many business cards to people who are brand new, who are like, I don't know how to garb. And I'm like, I have a basic tunic handout instructional handout on in my Google Drive. Start there. So next thing that I think is really important for this event, or for any event where you're doing a display, plan what your display looks like. Figure out how big your table is going to be. Make sure you have a tablecloth that's big enough. 8-foot tables, man, it's so hard to find a tablecloth. I always end up just using fabric. But plan your display. And I don't mean like, some people get super into this and they'll be like, I found an 8-foot table in my garage and I put my tablecloth on it and laid out everything exactly how I wanted. And I took a picture. Like, I know people who have done that. I'm not that organized. Here's my plan for the last event I did a display at. As you will notice, it is on an envelope. And I just did a little sketch of roughly what I planned to bring. Be like, I got 2 mannequins and a head block and some books and my little foldy display board that I'm gonna pin my information to, and a chicken skeleton and a box of goose bones. That's what I'm putting on my table. This is the plan for the my Principality Arts and Sciences competition display, which I won, by the way. So like, totally legit method of planning your display. Does not have to be fancy. Just basically have an idea of where you're going to put stuff. What things get lost when they're just a little scribble representation that may need some oomph, may need to sit on a box or whatever. And the last thing in my what you should prepare beforehand. So I've mentioned a couple times that I have some social anxiety. A lot of us do. This was the best piece of advice given to me before this event. Come with a conversation starter planned. And what that means to each person is different. That depends on your level of social comfort and what you do. For me, I didn't trust myself to start a conversation at all, but I knew that I needed something. I needed some sort of prompt. So I took one of my handy little cards and I printed it out even bigger and I put it in the middle of my table and it said, ask me about pad stitching. Nonverbal open invitation. So anyone who walked by my table and didn't know me and didn't know what I was doing, but wanted something, basically had that invitation. It'd be like, okay, ask you about pad stitching. What is pad stitching? And I could start a conversation from that. So if you, like me, are really bad at initiating conversations, ask me about this thing that I care about. Not everyone is going to use it. Some people will just show up and start talking to you because some people are like that. But the people who don't know how to start a conversation will appreciate the invite and it will give you somewhere to begin. So those are my like prepare before you go things. Any more questions?
I had a comment about linking the Google Drive. I think that's an excellent idea, and I want to thank you for pointing that out. For anyone who hasn't done that before, when you share a folder, make sure that you share it as view only. Otherwise, people can go in there and edit and take whatever they want, and that's not great. The other thing is that if you don't want to use that big long link that Google provides, there are services out there like Bitly that make a shorter URL code, so it might fit into your card better.
And it's something that you can usually put in on your own, like mine says Taran class handouts.
Yeah.
So you can, it's not a string of nonsense letters and numbers and symbols. It's something you actually can kind of remember. The one warning with doing that, however, is my business cards that I've been handing out since the first Athenaeum. Google went through a security update earlier this year and broke that link. So the link that I've been handing out for 4 years suddenly was broken. So I had to make a new one recently, which kind of sucks. So just be aware that that can happen when they go through security policy changes. They can break your shared links. So keep an eye on that. If I checked my email more often, I would have realized that it had happened a couple months before I did, but it all worked out in the end. But yes, next section, unless there's more questions. So making a good display is something that I know that a lot of people have kind of struggled with. Again, my lovely plan here is scribbled in pen. It's not fancy at all. But the things you're going to notice in here is there's levels, there's things at different height. You want to be visible from across the way. You want people to be able to see what you do at a glance. Like just think of any fair you've ever been to, any like merchant's row you've ever been to, the people who are just like walking up and down the aisles and seeing like what's in that booth, what's in that booth, what's in that booth, you want them to be able to tell at a glance what you do, so no one who's interested in your thing is going to walk by. That said, levels, try to plan what you're packaging your stuff in boxes you can put under tablecloths to give you that elevation height you need. Like try and combine purposes wherever you can here. Number two, again, my big push is information. People should be able to walk by, glance at your table, and know who you are and what you do. If you have no other information on your table, it should be your name and the category of thing or things you are presenting. Accessibility is a big thing, and by that I mostly mean one of the flaws in my plan from my first Athenaeum, where I did not do a good job at editing what I was bringing, was setting your display up in such a way that you, from behind your table, can see what people are looking and pointing at. Because people would come up to my table and they would be like, "That's really cool, how'd you do that?" And I would like lean way over the table and still not be able to see what they were pointing at, because I did not set up my display for me to be able to see it. So bear that in mind. You may need to be able to have a view of your own stuff from behind your table. And they have set us up every year. So basically you have your back to the back of other presenters and your table is facing out to the walkway. So you have a one-way display that you are sitting behind. So bear that in mind. Obviously, remember you have to pack whatever it is you're bringing, and it needs to be able to survive the trip. So plan accordingly for your packing. One other thing that is super, super handy, and I told you I had a couple of visual aids. This is my only other visual aid. Things for people to touch are really, really great. I have a whole bunch of, I told you my conversation starter was ask me about pad stitching. I had it, here's why it's called pad stitching, because you can use it for padding. You can make fake boning out of pad stitching. Here is what fabric looks like pad stitched and not pad stitched. Here, if you want to learn how to do it, is a threaded needle that you can try doing it yourself. And I had all of these with their handy little tags with my name on them set out on my table. So when people come by, there's things they feel welcome to pick up and handle and touch and look at the back side of. There's a lot of really interesting, cool skills in the SCA that are hard to see in a finished object. So bringing your half-finished things, your experimental things, your stuff that doesn't look fragile or precious is really, really helpful for people to be able to just touch. Amongst all of these things, I also had what ended up being the collar of a houppelande, but I brought it because I wanted a semi-finished object on the table so people could look at that. And if they wanted to try on the collar, to show how the thing worked. And that was really, really good, having that just here's some sort of progress of this one very specific little skill that I've been focusing on. So yeah, kind of review of things you should bring. Your art, an example of all of your art, even if it's only a portfolio example. Bring water, bring a drinking vessel, bring snacks, bring any necessary medications, including caffeine, that you think you are going to need throughout the day, because trust me, you will not end up walking out to the car during the event. It's just not going to happen. Don't forget to think about things like tablecloths and stands and frames and boxes to elevate stuff, mannequins, etc. Anything you need to make your display have levels and really showcase the things you're doing. Take a notebook and a pen so you can write down contact information and notes and cool resources people share with you. Bring your business card like things to hand out to people if they want to contact you. Bring any documentation you have done, any class handouts, any papers you've written. Bring all of it. And even if it just sits in a stack under your table, if someone starts talking about this weird niche thing you taught a class on, you'd be like, I taught a class on that. Here's the handout. Or when people are like, how did you make the inside of that sleeve look good? You can be like, my documentation entering that in Principality Arts and Sciences 4 years ago is right here. And I can flip through the page. There's the page where I talk about how I made the sleeve. Bring your documentation. You are not required to document anything you present at this event, but having any documentation you've already done handy is really, really helpful because it allows you to more effectively share. Another thing that is good to bring if you have space is any books that you heavily rely on for whatever the thing is that you're doing. Like I had books on my handy display for Principality Arts and Sciences because one of the things that I have been delving into is skeleton articulation and the collection of scientific specimens in 16th century Germany because I'm a weirdo. It's a really...
I was just gonna say, because you're fabulous, is what you mean?
Sure.
Yeah, because you're fabulous.
I second that.
Thanks. But it's a weird, obscure topic. And I have yet to actually read anything terribly useful in any of the books I have acquired on the subject. But I have some fabulous books that kind of talk around the subject. And I brought the whole stack of them with me because I had to explain to people why I need to collect little bits of metallic trim to bling out the goose skeleton that Her Highness saved for me in her long story. But I have a whole, bring the weird books, bring the books that people aren't going to have heard of. Even if you can't physically bring them, like take a picture of the cover and have it with you. Have a list with the reference information. Any source you don't expect other people have been looking at, have that on hand in case you find kindred spirit who is also into your weird niche thing and you want to share information with them. Those are really like those moments where you're like, you also love this really bizarre thing. It's so frustrating to not be able to share with them and info dump everything you have. And if you're like me and can't remember names and dates to save your life, write it down before you go. One of the things in my Google Drive for that specific purpose is all of the costume books I have in my personal library with my comparative review of each book. That way, if people are like, what books do you have? What would you recommend to someone with this skill level? I have them all rated by like how advanced I think you need to be as a sewist to be able to use the book. Because anytime you find a review, they are written from people with wildly different backgrounds. But if you can look at this list and go, okay, I have a book that's rated as intermediate, and I feel like maybe it's a little bit hard, but they're saying it's intermediate. That means that anything they say is going to be a little harder than I think it is. So if they say this book is way advanced, I don't want to buy that book. Something that's helpful. I haven't yet done that for any of my other reference books, only the costume ones, because that's most of the questions I get from people. But again, my big focus is I love sharing knowledge. I love being able to help people learn stuff. So anything I can do to share information and help people get started on their path is huge for me, which is why I was trying so hard. Like, everyone should go to this event. How can I help you? How can I convince you? I pretty much run out of things that I had planned to say. So does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I have a comment. You make this event seem way less scary than the scribes.
It's not scary. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I know from personal experience how intimidating this event seems. it's terrifying to sign up for this and go, oh my God, what am I going to bring? Am I going to be worthy? Yes, you are worthy. Go, bring your thing. It will be a delightful time. I had so much fun at this event, but I am not going to lie. I spent like 3 months being super stressed out and anxious about this event before the first time, which is why I wanted to be here to help anyone else who is feeling that way. Like, how can I help? What can I tell you? Ask me the most bizarre question you want about this event. I do not care. I will share all of my experiences with you, because for me, that's what would have helped alleviate my anxiety, and I didn't have anyone to ask. So my motto is be the person you needed when the world let you down. So I'm here. Ask me anything.
So when you arrive and there's a setup time, they say, here you go. Do you get assigned a table?
Yes.
And
Everyone.
How much time do you get to set it up? And then how long is that day that you're not going to get out to your car during? And how, walk us through how that day unfolds.
Okay.
No.
Walk you through the day. So first of all, disclaimer, it's been 2 years since I've been to this event and I have no concept of time. So this is all going to be ADD guesstimate, time-wise. But so we got there way earlier in the morning than I am usually functional, probably like 8 a.m. I feel like presenters got to show up at 8 a.m. The parking at the first site was a lot more complicated than it was at the second site. I don't actually know where it is this year building wise. But we first showed up, we went into the gate, we signed in, and they said, your table, what's your name? Your table's over in that corner, go find it. And every table had a little card that had your name on it, your table number on it, and a color code on it. So they had everyone divided into 4 groups. So the plan is that, Argent group is on at their table for 3 sessions in a row. And I believe the sessions were something like 45 minutes. I don't remember exactly. Maybe they were half an hour. Maybe they were an hour. I don't know. They were a chunk of time that was like class-ish length. And then they had 1 session off where they got to go around and look at everybody else's stuff or take care of any needs they had. And they did that for the first half of the day and then reset and do it again for the second half of the day. So 3/4 of the time that displays are happening, you are on and at your table. 1 of those 3 on time slots is your official designated laurel visit. The other 2 are anyone else who is attending the event, including the other presenters, wandering by your table and talking to you. So you are pretty much guaranteed a nice, lengthy, involved conversation with someone who is specifically signed up to talk to exactly you, and a whole bunch of smaller scattered conversations from people who are passing by and interested in what you're doing. So it's a really good mix of in-depth and a lot of activity. And I skipped the part of setup. I believe we had to set up at like 8 a.m. and I think it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours. It was enough time to get your table set up, but not so much time you felt you could be leisurely about it. It was enough, and I tend to overpack and overthink. So the big reason I remember being stressed out the first year is, like I said, the parking was complicated. They actually there were a couple of the event team had brought wagons to loan to people to ferry things from their car. But where we ended up parking and where our displays ended up being, we ended up taking a side door up a staircase, was the most effective route to get in, because we didn't want to go all the way around to the main door from where we were parked. again, I don't know what the site is like this time, but if you don't have 6 displays packed into your car, it won't be so hard to unload. The setup time was it was more than an hour, less than 2, I think. And then, like I said, you had 1 session designated visit, 2 sessions, people coming to talk to you, just kind of at their whim, and then 1 session free range explore everybody else's stuff. And then they started over. The first year, they didn't have a planned lunch break. They expected us all to take our 1 session off and see to all of our physical needs, and no one did. I ended up almost having a blood sugar crash in the middle of the event. Suddenly I realized I hadn't eaten anything, and I went over to the other people I had carpooled with. I'm like, I need food or I will die. I will order food for all of us, what you want. And we all just impulse ordered gyros because that's what was close. And the food came to the event and it was delightful. Luckily, they sent out a feedback survey after the first year with what would you improve? And I'm probably not the only person who said, please, dear God, give us a lunch break. So the second year, they not only gave you a designated lunch break, but partially to ensure everything actually halted, they actually had an opt-in meal where you could throw an extra $5 at them and they catered a lunch. So you actually had food that was there all at the same time so you could eat with everybody else. And it was a really, really great to have just some time to sit outside in the sunshine, decompress, take a couple breaths, eat some food, chat with people you haven't seen yet. Really great to get away from your table for a while, because it was, I'm not gonna lie, the first year, the acoustics in the building were kind of terrible. And it was a lot of, if you are sound sensitive, it was that ambient room, that school cafeteria hum of conversation that gets really, really overwhelming for some of us who are sound avoidant. It was a lot. I was so exhausted after this event, so exhausted. The second year, having that lunch break in the middle was so incredibly helpful. Also, the room that we were in had much better acoustics, and it didn't do that reverberating, just constant noise of people breathing sort of feeling. It's really hard to explain to people who aren't sound sensitive how much a cafeteria is just soul sucking. But the second site was not like that, thank goodness. And again, lunch break helped. And also the whole room we were in was 3 walls of windows. So there was some natural light, which helped as well. So unfortunately, I do not actually know what the name of either site we were at before was. So I cannot tell you what site we're at this year, if it is even the same. I'm really bad with stuff like that. But I believe that they have been aiming to improve the event each time. So my guess is that even if they're not doing the catered lunch, they will still have the designated lunch hour where everything is broken up to let you decompress, which is really, really handy. So for those who may have food sensitivities, you probably still want to pack your own food. We ended up, the second year I went, one of the people in our party was a Laurel who packed it. She's a cooking Laurel. She packed an entire cooler full of snacks to feed us. It was lovely. You will have your whole under table space to store your empty boxes and bags and whatever else you bring. If you need snacks, bring a cooler, stash it under your table. I highly recommend anything you can quickly just get the blood sugar up if you are someone who needs to be concerned about that. I am a huge fan of little jar of trail mix goes with me everywhere so I don't die because I forget to eat. But yeah, the day feels really, really full, even though the event isn't particularly long. We ended up, I believe, there was court at the end of the day. The king and queen were there. I don't remember court had wrapped up and everything was over with before dinner because we went back to where we were staying and had dinner after the event. So it's not a terribly long event. It's just a very, very full event. Another thing I highly recommend, especially if you and a couple of other people in your household or branch are carpooling or caravanning up together, my branch pulled together and rented an Airbnb. And before we left in the morning, the morning people threw some stuff in a crock pot and left it on the counter. So when we got home from the event, we had a crock pot full of delicious food waiting for us with some fresh baked muffins that another person had brought. And like we were able to like sit and hang out in our, comfy pajamas after this long, exhausting event and talk about our experiences while we ate delicious home-cooked food that none of us really exactly had to prepare. Highly recommend. Rent a place with some friends, throw some stuff in a crock pot. Future you will be so happy you did. The first year we went, we got hotel rooms, and like you come home from this event and your brain is so full. It was very hard. It was very hard to like process all of that. It was way easier with this, having a couch to sit on with your friends where you can chat and share a meal together. Especially when you can do it in your pajamas as opposed to having to like go out to a restaurant and sit at a table wearing real pants, because who wants to do that after an event? I certainly don't. So that would be my other like post-event recommendation is find your team, find your carpool buddies, and absolutely see if you can find a good place that is going to be comfy when you get home and you just want to discuss everything. So yeah, that was not in order at all. I'm sorry, but that's kind of what the day was like. Any additional questions?
There's always that magic question. What would you personally have done dramatically differently? What was so different that surprised you?
So I can honestly say that the difference between what I did the first year and what I did the second year was pretty dramatic. The first year, I panicked and went, body of work. I have to bring everything I've ever done in some form. Because I do that sort of thing. I panic and I overdo it. The second year, I decided to focus on a particular set of skills I was working to develop. And instead of having an enormous amount of things, I had a small handful of easily portable things, my portfolio, and 3 dress forms with garments that represented the skills I was working on developing. So my table was much more streamlined. It was much more focused on a particular craft than it was on every skill I have ever acquired in the SCA. And for me, that was partially my own relaxing, my own letting go of the expectations I put on myself. And partially it was just, this is the direction I'm going right now. So it was, the first time it was like, I have to show what I do. And the second time it was, I want to show what I'm working on. So it was much more of a current thing versus a look back on the history. But in both cases, it was what I needed to, it was where my focus was at the time. Because the first year, when I panicked and brought everything, like I said, it was also, I was coming out of that creative slump where I was feeling really down on myself for the things that I hadn't been doing. So for me, bringing all of that stuff was proving to myself that I do lots of things. And I was feeling better about it when I showed up for the second year. I'm like, I don't need to prove I do a million things. This year, I need to prove I'm getting better at this one thing. So really, there's no rules to this. This event has no rules. Bring what you need to show the world. Bring what you need to be displaying and working on and focusing on. Bring what you want people to talk to you about. If everyone has known you for, your, trying to think of random craft. If everyone knows you for basket weaving and you're so sick of baskets, you don't even want to talk about it anymore, don't bring a basket. Bring what you want people to talk to you about. Sort of a roundabout way of answering the question, but. You're muted.
Sorry, I was talking to someone who walked into the room.
Okay, sorry.
So it's sort of, you can get from this what you want to get from this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, absolutely.
And the goal is it's kind of twofold, it sounds like. One is to share and encourage and excite others to do the things. And the other is very specifically to gain some insight into how you can do the things in a maybe different or better or more successful or more effective way.
Yeah.
Okay. But for those of us who want to do all the things all the time,
Yeah.
I don't get to the point of saying, oh, I'm really good at this thing, so now it's time to move on to the next thing, because I'm a little like a dog, a squirrel.
Yeah.
I'm working on this squirrel. I'll do that for a while. Oh, squirrel, that looks good.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I love this event, because for those of us who do have trouble focusing on one thing, if you have an amazing breadth of skills and interests, it's really hard to do things like enter a competition, because usually you need that certain level of depth if you're going to score well. And if you're not going to score well, then most of us don't have the emotional fortitude to enter something we know we're going to score poorly at. Just put it that way. So
yeah, I don't compete.
Yeah. But this is one of those events where it is a venue that encourages you to show off that breadth. It is an excuse to bring out yeah, maybe I'm not an expert at any of these things,
No, got it.
But look at all the things that I have dabbled in. And there's not really a whole lot of opportunity in the SCA to really show that off. I mean, you become known amongst your friends and your local area as, oh, well, if someone has, beginner knowledge of how to do this weird craft, it's probably this person. Go ask them.
I'm a dabbler.
But as far as actually having any sort of like showcase event where you really get to be celebrated for a variety of skills, this is pretty much it. This is the event for something like that.
So in essence, everybody who's here in this little Zoom room has something awesome to go and share with the other people there so that it can go forward and more people can do the thing.
Yes. Everyone should go.
Well, you can, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when is it?
Very good question. It is the week after Ontario West War.
July.
Yes.
7th, no, 9th.
It is the weekend after Ontario West War. I don't time good. I just know that it will be my very first event as a laurel.
I will find that date for you.
So it will be very exciting. It'll be the first time I actually get to go and like be on the other side of the table.
And where is it going to be?
Seattle-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that's July 9th and 10th. That's Saturday and Sunday, weekend after the 4th.
Yeah, it's in Shoreline, Washington, at the Scottish Rites Masonic Center.
Oh, that is such an awesome venue. I love that.
It
place.
really is. It really is.
No, new event site I haven't been to before because I'm pretty sure it was a school both times previously.
I wanted to say congrats on getting a laurel, and you've convinced me to go.
Yay.
We're all very excited to go.
Very excited.
Yeah.
Good. I hope to see lots of people there. The first year I went, our carload of folks were the only representatives of the summits. It was just the 6 of us. Nobody else went. And believe me, we gave shit to the people who were from Seattle and complaining about the drive because they had to go through some traffic to get there. We're like, we're from as far south as you can get before you run into the next kingdom, and we're here. Yeah, I would love to see more people there. Would love to see more summits representatives, especially since our carpool this year is not bringing any displays. It's going to be so weird, but two of us who were not previously will be laurels, and the other is recently a baroness. So all of us are going to be there in support roles as opposed to presenter roles like we were the first time.
So you say the cap is very near to being filled, or it is filled?
Technically, they have filled all of the slots, but they are still accepting waitlist slots. And there's usually about 10% of people seem to drop out by the time you get halfway there, just because life happens. Because it fills up so quickly, everyone who's even sort of thinking about it, who knows what the event is like, will sign up, and they'll be like, I'll decide later if I really want to go. It's like rooms at 12th night.
Okay.
Do you have to have a display to go?
You do not. You can go and just look at everybody else's displays and talk to them. There were quite a few, the first year I went, there were quite a few like wide-eyed fighters who were consorting for their arts and sciences counterparts there. Usually the fighting and the arts and sciences happen at the same time, and most events have both. So there were a lot of fighters who showed up at this event who don't really arts and science, but their partners were there with displays, so they were having to be the consort for the first time. And there were so many people walking around who were like, I didn't even know there were so many things you could do. It was really adorable seeing some of these fighters like just being in awe of all the stuff they never paid attention to before. There was a lot more people going specifically to look at stuff the second year, but like the first year I very specifically remember several fighters wandering through, just like mind blown at the massive amount of skill on display there. But yeah, I highly recommend it. I only briefly got to look around both years I went because I only had my, hour away from my table where I wasn't shoving food in my face. So I'm really looking forward this year being able to actually go and look at everything. It's gonna be great. So yeah, if you don't feel confident in displaying this year, still plan on going, checking stuff out. I know for me, being able to go to this event would probably have alleviated a lot of the anxiety about what am I supposed to bring. But I wasn't going to miss out on the opportunity.
So for those of us here in the southern part of the more southern part of the prince, the realm, it's one day of travel, one day of display, and one day travel coming home. So you kind of need 2 nights.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to plan for.
Yes. No, it is a one-day event, which is nice because it does then mean, if you travel up Friday evening or take Friday off work or take a half day or whatever, travel up on Friday, spend the night, spend Saturday at the event, come back to wherever you're staying Saturday night, eat food, lounge around in your pajamas, processing everything you've learned, and travel back on Sunday. But all the more reason to find carpool buddies and rent a cool place to stay.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm excited. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm always up for fun, especially when it involves making the things and doing the things and learning about making and doing the things.
Yeah. I had so much fun at it. There were a lot of people I saw there that I didn't know what art they did. Like, fortunately, one of my primary arts is garb. So like I walk around wearing my stuff. So a lot of people know what I do because I'm wearing it and the rest of my household is wearing some of it. But there are a lot of people who do crafts that aren't as visible that I had no idea what they did. One of the other people that I pretty much only knew from teaching a lady fighter, from like leading a lady fighter panel with her, does absolutely amazing leatherwork. I had no idea until I saw her at Athenaeum. Like, you're here? What are you doing? She does amazing leatherwork. And I never knew that because both of us were always on the fighting field at events. Different fields even. So like we never really ran into each other. There was somebody else that I do fight with on occasion who apparently researches historic dentistry, which is super cool. And like she was just down the road from me displaying, and like I had no idea she was into that. It's so interesting getting to see people's arts that you don't ordinarily get to experience.
Yeah, that
And
is,
just
there is something to think on, because when we get together for tournaments or wars or things or feasts, we all put on our garb and go do our thing. And some of that ambiance that's around us is the skills that people have developed that we're just almost blind to, like the lighting and the furniture and the eating gear and the food we're eating.
well, and you go to an event and the walls are draped with beautiful tapestries, but you're not necessarily connecting the tapestry with the person who made the tapestry. They're separate. If you're not good at names, if there's not a tag saying this person made it with a picture of them, like most of us aren't going to know who it was. But this is one of those events where people get to put the face to the craft. They get to actually meet the person behind the skills, which for so many crafts, for so many things, there's not really a good venue for that to happen. So like especially if the things you do aren't something you are wearing as you walk around, I highly recommend you do this so people can learn that you are the person who does this thing, because that's how you gather more people interested in that thing to you. Also, if you do garb, plan in advance not only what you're going to display, but that you actually have something to wear that is not a mannequin. Because I had a brief moment of panic my first year when I realized I was planning to display things and didn't have anything I liked to wear. I ended up just opting to put one of the things on me instead of on a mannequin. But just do be aware that you also will want to wear clothes, and wear comfy clothes. You're going to be sitting behind a table for a long time, and you probably don't want to wear like super tight bodice or cumbersome hat, or just keep in mind load in, load out. Even if you do want to wear your super fanciest stuff, maybe plan something where you can load in wearing your kirtle and then throw the gown on when your table's set up. Just be aware of that, because those are some of those things that I at least have a tendency to forget about when I'm planning displays. I get so focused on what goes on the table that I forget I have to be there too.
So I'm being piggy about asking all these questions. Someone else should walk over the top of me here. But people like Magda, she does an awful lot of music. I saw somebody had a harp earlier. When you're putting on display what your arts and your crafts are, what about presentation of music?
So in the previous years, and I don't know if they're doing it this year because I haven't gotten an answer back, but in previous years, they actually had a separate bardic thing where bards also got to sign up, and they basically gave you a presentation. They gave you like a half an hour or 45 minutes. I have no idea time. They gave you a time slot, and basically you had the floor and you got to do your performance of whatever it was in front of your audience for that amount of time and talk to people about stuff. And I'm not a bard. I do limited theatrical things, but I don't really bard so much. But a member of my household, a couple members of my household are bards. One of them went to Athenaeum the last year it was in person. And we had spent the entire last year talking about how awesome the arts and sciences side of it was, me and his lady. And we're like, this event is so cool. Oh, and they do bardic stuff. So he decided to go sign up and go for the bardic stuff. He's like, what's it like? And we're like, we don't know. We never even made it to the bardic room. No idea. But so we were really hoping that he was going to have fun, because he's one of those people that he gets in his head a lot, gets a little anxious about things, was a little bit unsure about an event that he really didn't know anything about this side of the event. And we were not able to go and support him. So we were really hoping that he was going to have a good time, but we didn't know. We were basically just like, have fun. We'll see you in 3 hours. So he went and he did his thing. He came back. I was the first person he saw when he came back after his time slot. It was one of the brief moments where my table was empty, and he came down and sat next to me at my table, and he was just vibrating with excitement. He had such a good time that he basically he was sitting there just like, the queen told me I have to finish this thing, and there was this feedback, and I got to perform all of this, and he had so much fun at it. He just word vomited for 10 minutes at me, and then he's like, I should go find my wife, and then just bolted away to go talk to her, because he was just so excited. So I really can't tell you anything about what it's like because I wasn't there, but the one bard I know who did go and do the thing was re-inspired with everything that he does, because he had such a good time. And they don't necessarily have as much spotlight as the arts and sciences displays, because you get your one performance time slot and that's it. But that was enough for him. That fueled him for months. So again, I don't know if they're doing the bardic stuff. I would assume they are, but in the previous years, the bardic sign up was a separate thing. So it's possible they just haven't gotten to that yet. They may have their event team divided, because I know they haven't released the laurel sign up list either. So the space constraint is all in artisan displays. So that's the first thing that gets released. So if you are interested in doing bardic stuff, bug them. Send them messages, post on the page, be like, hey, are we doing bardic this year? And it would be possible, hypothetically, to do both if you are a bard and an artisan. You would just have to be very clear that you are doing both. So they make sure to schedule your free arts and sciences time slot during your performance bardic slot. And that's a lot, and I can't imagine. But I also am an introvert. So, if that's your thing, go for it. But I can't.
So there's some really talented people in this entire kingdom, and if they all just swarmed in there, they'd have to move it to a 2-day event.
I don't know if I could handle 2 days. I mean, I'd still try, but it'll be a lot.
That sounds like a grand time.
I'd have to sleep for a week. I was so tired after the first one, so ridiculously wiped out. But but in that really satisfied, like I just got home from war and all I want to do is sit on the couch and veg, but I had such a good time. I would do it again, you know, just not right now. Does anybody else have questions?
So I have a comparison.
Mhm.
For all of this, it sounds like we're staffing a con.
Yeah.
Like that's what this sounds like, and I'm really excited about it. I have absolutely no way to present anything, and that's okay. But
you could go and see other presentations and learn stuff.
Yes, and meet people, because I don't know anybody in this kingdom, and that's okay.
Well, this is a great way to figure out who you want to talk to.
I have a question.
This
I
is
should just
Zane.
say it. Hi. Would you recommend for like first time going to just to not have a stand and look at other people's stuff for the first time going?
If that's what you're more comfortable with, then sure. I didn't. I just jumped right in. One thing I should absolutely have looked at before this class. There is a YouTube video tour of the second Athenaeum. If you need a visual of what it looks like, you'll have to listen to me talk some more because I was the sound tester. Like, talk about your display. I'm going to see if this works. So I'm in that as well. But there is a bit of a walk around so you can see several different people's displays if that makes you feel more comfortable and you want to try and jump right in and have a display. But if if the idea of being on a wait list and not having a guaranteed slot is adding to the anxiety, go ahead and just go as a visitor. If it's up to you. I don't think there's any reason you have to wait, but I'm also not going to try and push anyone into things that they're not comfortable doing yet. If you haven't looked at a lot of arts and sciences displays, I would recommend before you go at least looking at arts and sciences displays, whether that's like look through pictures online that people have posted from various competitions or from prior Athenaeums or whatever. Looking at pictures of displays to try and come up with ideas of how you want to display your art would be good, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't just sign up and go for it.
So what you're saying is you're going to send each of us individually a link.
I am going to try and look it up real fast right now. Pardon the divided attention. I will recognize.
I was teasing you a bit.
But it's a really useful video that I would have.
Are you sending this in chat?
I will once I find it. And pardon the creepy fingers.
And I will
my
put
laptop
that
can't.
link. We're recording this session, and that will be a YouTube that we'll put a link to in the discussion under this event. We will also, in that discussion, put the link for this YouTube that Taran's talking about here. So after the event's over, you can go back and get both the link.
Yes. So I posted it in the chat just now. So it is a 10.5-minute video done by I guess she's no longer on Taran, but a Laurel who started out in Ontier. I believe she moved last year. Some of you may be familiar with Morgan Donner. She does a lot of delightful online content, but she's the one who ran the video, who did the video. So anyway, that should give you some idea of what things are like. And you can see one of my big, giant, ridiculous feathery hats because that's what I'm wearing. Anyone else have questions?
I've been talking away with my mic off. I will put this link under the event so that you have the link to Morgan Donner's YouTube. We will put the link under this event so you have the link for the YouTube recording of this event. And the image of Taran wearing her beautiful hat will be the thumbnail for that YouTube, and it is the thumbnail for this event, unless Taran doesn't want it to be. So you'll see.
It's fine. It's conspicuous for a reason.
Yes. Conspicuous and beautiful. Well, Taran, thank you very, very much for doing this. I've been inspired. I hope others have.
I hope so too. I would love to see a strong Summit's presence up there showing the Northerners what we can do. Because
oh, you know what? We didn't ask what fee there is for this. Do you know?
I do not off the top of my head. I feel like it was a fairly standard, small day event type fee. I don't remember it being much.
So we can all go look.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much event information has been posted at this point. As far as I know, they just last week opened up hey, artisan registration, and they're 50% full, 100% full, sign up on the wait list.
Wow.
Within 24 hours. So we are still pretty early out. I mean, it's beginning of July. So we've got nearly 3 whole months before this event.
So it does say that it has information up, and it says the site fee will be 20 plus the standard non-member 5 where applicable. And so that's what it looks like for that. It doesn't say that there's any different fee for persons just visiting versus displaying.
Thank you.
Hey, someone who's looking up things that I didn't think of beforehand.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.